There was nothing out of the ordinary about Casey's day, but that all changed the moment she met him. There was something about him that captivated her. She had no clue what to expect when she received the note. Her only intention was to do something kind for her fellow human being. Casey had not anticipated being in tears as a result of it. Casey Fisher's life was no different from other people's. She had experienced her fair share of ups and downs. She was born and raised in Connecticut, and even though she had a relatively normal childhood, it does not mean that everything was always sunshine and roses. Ever since she was a little girl, Casey learned important life lessons. One of the most valuable ones was that life waits for no one, and that it is sometimes necessary to struggle in order to get what you want. Casey was a single mother, and that presented its own challenges. She knew several young and old ladies who tried to raise children on their own, but it was no easy task. Casey did not pay much attention to it. She was a beautiful woman full of life. She felt like her big break in life was soon to come, but she had no idea how wrong she was. Casey had 2 children to provide for, and it was quite tough. Casey was a young woman, and she felt unprepared for her situation in life. She knew that things weren't going to be easy, but her 2 beautiful daughters made everything worth it. Casey wanted nothing more than to be a good mother and to have a successful life. On top of being a mother, Casey was also a student. Casey, on the other hand, was able to continue her education while raising her children. She put forth a lot of effort and encouraged a lot of challenges along the road. Relationships came and went, but her daughters were the only constant in her life. Despite her difficulties, Casey remained true to herself, and her compassionate heart would eventually change her life. Casey was not much different from other students. She loved going to coffee shops and grabbing a quick meal. Many students were too caught up in their own lives to pay attention to others around them, but not Casey. Despite the fact that many people walked by him on a regular basis, Casey happened to notice Chris, the man who changed everything, in the midst of her frenzy of attempting to achieve her goals.
Also, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell to get inspired by these real-life stories every day. Now, back to the story.
It was evident from the man's clothing and appearance that he was homeless. Casey stood there watching him scrounge for change before gathering together a few pennies and entering a nearby Dunkin' Donuts. He had a childlike purity about him, gentle eyes, and a melancholy expression on his face. Casey, for some reason, became concerned for him and followed him into the store. Those around her must have thought it was a bizarre sight to see a young girl who offered to buy the elderly gentleman a coffee and a sandwich. Even when Casey invited Chris to join him, he spoke with grace and dignity. It was almost as if he accepted his position in life and never wanted to ask anybody for help. She sat down with the man and learned his story. She was touched by all he went through. Chris shared that he was not much different from other people. His mother passed away from cancer, which led him to struggle with addiction. He was not proud of the man he became. Despite all of the setbacks, Chris persevered and did his hardest to remain positive, despite the fact that people were often unkind to him as he was homeless. Casey couldn't stop herself from being captivated by him. Casey was unexpectedly engrossed in Chris's conversation, and the two ended up conversing for nearly an hour. Casey felt so at ease chatting with him that she ended up disclosing some of her own personal troubles and goals. When it was time to leave, Chris requested a pen and looked eager to use it. For a brief while, Casey was perplexed and perhaps concerned about what was going on. Chris used the pen to scribble on a piece of paper. Casey realized then that he seemed to be writing a note. It had clearly been a while since he'd even held a pen, as his hands shook the entire time. Apologizing for his shaky writing, Chris handed it to Casey before they parted. As she read it, her eyes immediately welled up with tears at the words. Chris's note was simple, yet touched Casey so deeply. She immediately felt a surge of gratitude. She had felt drawn to Chris for some inexplicable purpose that day. Now, after reading his note, she finally knew what that purpose was. The note said, I wanted to kill myself today. Because of you, now I do not. Thank you, beautiful person. Casey had her own struggles in life, as we all do. Chris showed her that our own problems may seem huge to us until we realize what others are going through. Casey learned this lesson after meeting Chris and felt a new surge of energy to never give up, no matter how tough things got. Over time, she was rewarded for her persistence and hard work. Not long after her encounter with Chris, Casey posted a heartfelt message about it on social media. Within no time, the story of her kindness and the impact it had gone viral. So much in Casey's life changed that day. There would always be obstacles, but Casey learned to keep overcoming challenges. With renewed vigor, her life got better too. Over time, Casey was able to complete her studies. She later became a licensed realtor and began a flourishing career. She has come a long way in life, and her girls are older now. Casey has done a wonderful job of raising them. Casey and Chris's story continues to inspire and help people who struggle through dark days. Through it, they remain a beacon that reminds us how kindness can change a person's life.